You are listening to the Wealth Formula Podcast with Buck Joffrey. Get ready to change your life.
Welcome, everybody. This is Buck Joffrey with the Wealth Formula Podcast. Before I begin, I just want to remind you, with all this downtime you already have now, make sure you go check out that wealthformula.com website. Lots of resources there, opportunity to catch up on things. Make sure you consider joining the Investor Club. There's also Wealth Formula Network. It's a course followed by a community, online community that I think in these days, I think that kind of thing could be very beneficial to many of you. Check it all out, wealthformula.com. Now, this whole thing is this is like an unparalleled situation, right? I've never seen anything like this. What's crazy about it is if you look just a month ago, like say at the beginning of March, I am recording this on April Fool's Day here. But remember a month ago when this coronavirus thing was sort of more of a theoretical issue. You know, after all, we only had 15 cases reported in the whole country. No one had died. Sure, we started to see the news in China and Italy, but they seem so far away. And wow, even the president was saying that this whole thing was just going to disappear. But then every day, things got substantially worse, exponentially worse, literally exponentially worse. And now even those who mocked the hysteria at the beginning are now admitting that this is indeed a big deal. It's a big deal. No, I won't pretend that I knew it was coming. I mean, listen, I didn't have the perspective to see it, and those who did have the perspective in government really didn't make it clear to the rest of us. But it's here now, and it's going to get worse. So there's no sense in finger pointing. Things are going to get a lot worse. Thousands are going to die. Unemployment will be well over 20%. There will be suffering beyond the disease in the form of financial fallout. We're going to see that. There's no doubt in my mind. But here's the thing. There is some good news in this episode of history, and that is that eventually it will be just that. It will be history. Eventually it will be a bad memory. We will move on with our lives as we should, but we should not forget this moment because although history does not repeat itself, it does rhyme. There will be another pandemic eventually, and it could be even worse than the current one. And we shouldn't be surprised when it happens. After all, even though most of us thought this initial thing that was happening with the coronavirus was getting blown out of proportion to a certain degree, there was certainly plenty of evidence at the national security level, within the last 3 or 4 years, that this kind of, quote, virus X, unquote, was quite possible. I mean, there's plenty of papers written about this as a possibility, but as a society, and again, I'm not blaming anyone. As a society, we knew this was possible, and we did nothing to protect ourselves. We can blame the government all we want. We can say, oh, they should have known this happened. But the reality is the government only reflects our own priorities, and unfortunately, our priorities didn't seem to plan for much beyond today, or yesterday, as it were. This current pandemic worries me, but the thing about it is I know it's finite. What worries me even more is all of the ticking time bombs that we know that are out there, but frankly, just choose to ignore the same way we ignored the risk of this pandemic. We're being short-sighted on multiple fronts, and I'm just really worried that it's going to bite us in the ass. For example, we know that our power grid is vulnerable to the cyber attack. And if our grid went out tomorrow, it would mean more than the lights going out. It would mean, amongst other things, hospitals being rendered non-functional. It would mean a shutdown of communication of all kind. No more clean running water. People would die. It's a very scary thing that national security is identified as a threat, but we do not have the appetite to spend on infrastructure and defense now. And therefore, unfortunately, we're just waiting for this ticking time bomb to go off and fix it when it happens at the expense of trillions of dollars and probably lots of lost lives again. Another case in point. Now, I know this one is politically a little bit of a button that usually I don't like to push, but climate change. I don't understand, frankly, why climate change opinions seem to be affected by party and, why they're divided on party lines. I don't really understand. And why is it that I'm an anomaly and that I am a fiscal conservative, but I'm open to the idea that there is potentially serious hazard in ignoring climate change as a real issue that should be confronted. Why is that a political issue? Why was coronavirus a political issue? It makes no sense. It doesn't take a meteorologist to figure out that something funky is going on when 1,000-year storms start happening every couple of years. And although I believe personally that it's man-made in nature, you don't even have to believe that there's something happening, and that if we don't, could have deadly consequences to us or our children if we simply call it a hoax, right? Okay, so I know some of you are getting worked up already, but let me ask you this. Would we be better off today if, as a country, we'd taken coronavirus more seriously 2 months ago? Even if coronavirus ended up being just another flu, would we have suffered by being overly conservative with preparation, early lockdowns? Of course not. So why not look at this other issue of climate change the same way? In my mind, if those of us who think climate change is a serious danger to the world, and say we're wrong, say we're completely wrong, that this is not a big deal at all, and everybody who says it's a hoax is right, what's the worst thing that could happen? Well, cleaner air and water, right? I mean, that's what could happen. What's the downside? The downside is huge. That's asymmetric risk. Anyway, save yourself with the, time if you've got some hate mail for me, because I don't really have the time for it. And I'm not here to argue politics. I'm just telling you that I think there's dangers out there, whether it be the grid, climate, whatever, that I think that we have to address that can't be reversed simply with, the creation of a vaccination. Bottom line is, I hope that the end of this, at the end of this national nightmare, we can start looking at where else our exposure is and start coming up with some plan Bs that might be needed, when a second passport does you no good, because it's just something that it's a big problem in the entire world and it affects us as human beings. It's, it is a time right now that I think we should all use for reflection at the macro level like this. Of course, the micro level is obvious too. And of course, this is, again, not a political show. My opinions are my own, and they're not along any sort of party lines. They're just my own silly opinions. So we'll keep this about money. And I will say that there is plenty of lessons to be learned by this kind of thing as a financial stress test as well. The government is doing what it can to keep us on life support until we get that cure or vaccination right now, as you know. But, my friend Tom Wheelwright is a very smart guy, and he's going to be on this week's podcast to talk about all of what's going on with the CARE Act and all this. Tom is the Michael Jordan of CPAs. He's Robert Kiyosaki CPA. He's my CPA. Not that I have, Robert CPA's, type of money, but he's a brilliant entrepreneur as well. He's literally saved me millions of dollars in taxes over the last several years in a very legal way. In fact, this is a very important podcast to listen to, because this CARE Act has got some interesting things going on with it. And you may come away from this podcast realizing that you could actually potentially come out ahead in the financial sense because of the tax relief provided by this disaster bill. Anyway, make sure to listen to this podcast, and when we come back, we'll have Tom Wheelwright. Welcome back to the show, everyone. Today, my guest is really not a guest. He's practically family on this show at this point. He's my CPA. He's a celebrity CPA. He's sort of the Michael Jordan of CPAs. Robert Kiyosaki uses him, etc. He is Tom Wheelwright of Tax Free Wealth. Tom, welcome back.
Hey, thanks, but always good to be with you. Always good to be with your people. We have so many clients that are, subscribers of yours and members of yours, and they are absolutely our favorite clients. So,
well, I appreciate that. That's very kind of you. And we were just talking offline. I mean, these are crazy times, and I'm trying to get some of the smartest people out there to talk about what's going on, coming up with some strategies. Now you have a unique position, Tom, as a tax and wealth advisor, as a small business owner yourself, as an entrepreneur. What are you seeing from each one of these perspectives out there right now?
So it's fascinating. The CPAs are truly on the front lines. I mean, we're like the healthcare professionals of the financial industry right now. I'm not kidding.
Right.
I was joking with one of our members. We have 35 members in our accounting firm network, and I was joking with him the other day. I said, you're an essential service, because he's in Connecticut, and they're getting hit hard like New York. And he goes, yeah, he says, we're saving the world one tax return at a time.
There you go.
And I'm laughing, but the reality is our clients are all talking to us about these loans in this new bill that the House just passed. We're looking, our clients are talking to us about the tax issues, the new tax provisions in the new bill, which, by the way, are stellar. We can talk about that a little later. And then on the other hand, I'm dealing with clients. I've got a client who, some of your people, frankly, Buck, that are really struggling. I have a client that is a very successful physician, and told me the other day that he took an 80% pay cut.
Really?
80%. And for no fault of his, it's just that because we don't have gowns and masks, that they've shut down what they call non-essential medical, which is just ridiculous, because we should have had gowns and masks, months ago. I mean,
right.
the whole, if you ever wanted to complain about the government, now would be the time.
Right.
But the bigger question I always think is, okay, I can't control the government. I have no say over government. So what do I do with, I can't do anything about the economy, but I sure can about my economy.
Yeah. Yeah. And so what are you, what does it look like? I mean, at least from what you're seeing when you look at the small businesses out there, how long are most businesses equipped for this kind of total freeze on the economy? I mean, when I look at it, and obviously I've got small business activity myself, and fortunately I have more than one business, and while one or two of them are getting completely decimated, the other ones fortunately are shielded to a certain extent. But what are you seeing, like, in your typical small business? What is the threshold of like complete catastrophe?
Well, so the reality is I think it's 2 or 3 months.
Yeah.
Maybe 4 as a general rule. The biggest challenge is that you can't wait. We found this in 2008, right? Because 2008 was another financial crisis, very different, because that was a banking crisis. This is not a banking crisis. This is a Main Street crisis. But what we found back then is that people waited too long to lay people off. Yeah. They waited too long to reduce salaries. They waited too long to pay attention. And what we're seeing now is that businesses are being much better about that. So I'm seeing in the last 2 weeks, I would say any business that's struggling has been laying people off, or saying, okay, or at least reducing their pay, saying, look, when it's good, we'll be good, but right now it's bad, and we're trying to stay afloat. So I think those are the 2 choices right now for the businesses that are struggling. On the other hand, you have businesses that are absolutely booming right now.
Yeah,
I mean,
like if you're selling toilet paper.
Think about it. Or bicycles.
Yeah.
Or roller skates. Or, if you're selling things that people really want and need right now, you're in great shape. But if you're, like us, our CPA firms, I mean, we're in such high demand right now. Our struggle is that we have clients that are struggling, so they're going to struggle to pay us.
Yeah.
So that's the ripple effect. The ripple effect is your business might be fine, but are your customers able to pay you for what they need from you? So it's quite the balancing act, I think.
So along that lines, we were talking a little bit. You were kind of telling me the congressional plan, the bill. You've read it and you know what's going on with it. What does it look like to you?
In a word, what it looks like to me, can we be honest?
Oh, well, of course.
It looks like pork to me. Yeah. That's what it looks like. So I think it does. I think it does help the worker, and particularly the unemployed worker, because the unemployed worker, there are going to be unemployed workers. I talked to my son who's a bartender, and he had to choose between unemployment or to retain his health insurance. And the bar let him keep his health insurance because the bar can, they're okay. They were prepared. They can handle, a month or so. But the reality is he would make more money being unemployed than he ever did as a bartender because of this new bill. I mean, not only do you get your regular unemployment, you get an additional $600 per week. So there's actually, and this was the complaint that some of the Republican senators had on Monday, and that's why they were concerned about it. It does look like the Democrats are trying to buy votes here. That's what it looks like. To me, it looks like the Democrats are trying to buy votes and the Republicans are trying to take care of their basically cronies, right? Because when you look at the small business funding, and there's small business loans out there, but the way the bill's written, it appears to me that McDonald's is a small business because they're looking at location by location. So while the franchises may indeed be struggling right now, I don't know if they are, but they may be. It looks to me like the big companies are going to have, they're really going to go out and they're going to attack these loans. And the question is, will there be anything left for the Main Street business? Yeah,
and I think that's the real fear, right? Because so many people are employed by those businesses, and yes, people need money right now. They need to eat. They need to, in some cases, pay rent. Although there's, some optionality to that. Even
that's in the bill, right? You can't evict. So here's an interesting one. Like you can't evict for 120 days, and you can get your mortgage taken care of for 90 days. So if you're in multifamily. Right. You can't, you've got 120 days you can't evict, but you're only going to get relief for 90 days. So that's a little disconnect on the timing there. Yeah. So I think there are some multifamily people. I know you do a lot of multifamily. If you were well prepared for this, multifamily is going to be fine. Because it's not like you're not going to lose tenants. They're just not going to be able to pay, right? Yeah. On the other hand, if you were kind of thin in the first place and not paying attention, I think we're going to see some bargains out there in the next year on those multifamilies.
Yeah, and then just from my perspective, I'll kind of fill you in. Now, I don't know if the bill changes what we knew of even yesterday, but basically the idea was if Freddie and Fannie, if you have agency debt, if you were willing to say you're not evicting anybody, they're willing to do forbearance up to I think 90 days. Yeah, but here's the catch. In order for you to ever evict somebody, you have to go back and pay and catch up. So it's not really a true forbearance, right? Right. Now, in our case, luckily, everything that we've done, we have substantial. We have a really good. We're capitalized really well, and we're really in a position to if we have to, we'll just pay expenses for the next 90 days. But you're right. People who have been struggling with cash flow, operators that have been struggling for cash flow, they're toast because to me, one of two things happens, right? They can either just have people not pay rent and they walk away from the beginning, or they take up Freddie and Fannie, in which case they get into this, bargain with the devil that they're never going to get out of. It's going to be impossible. And
that's the same thing. So, for example, I think one of the nice provisions of this bill is businesses under 500, you can defer your payroll tax So you've actually got two different provisions in here, and we don't know exactly how they're going to apply. But one is that the employer side of payroll tax, you can defer, and you defer all of the employer side of payroll tax. So that's all of the employer side of FICA and Medicare, right? Can be deferred for the entire rest of the year, and then you don't have to start paying it back until December of 2021. You pay back 50%, and December of 2022 you pay back the other 50%. So that's one that actually I think is a good provision, because everybody gets it. You don't have to apply to SBA. You don't have to talk to your bank. You just get it.
But you still got to pay it. But you still got to pay it. Right.
Right. You just don't pay. That's just an expense you don't have.
Right.
And you're going to owe it. Okay. And you have to know that, when the economy rebounds, you've got to set that money aside. But for now, that's actually, it's fairly serious. I mean, if you have 50 employees or 100 employees, you've got some serious payroll. You may have $1 million of payroll easily in a month. And, 7%. It's 7-8% is pretty serious money on that payroll. You're talking about $80,000 a month that you're able to defer, and you're able to basically take 9 months worth, April through January, 9 months worth of, so that's, 9 times 80 in that case, you're talking about $700,000.
Yeah.
So that's some pretty serious money that's available. That's available right away. Also, there's a payroll tax credit for certain, not everybody, but certain really hit hard small businesses. And so that credit is available as well. So there are some good things in the bill. Don't get me wrong. I just, I don't love that really more than half the bill goes to, I think, people who probably could survive without it.
Yeah. So let's emphasize a little bit more on the tax side, because you said there was some, you really like.
Yes.
So what are we going to come out of this, on the positive side of things?
Oh my heavens! So there's some great stuff here, Buck. So thank you for having me on. I mean, actually, today is exactly the right day to have me on, because the bill just passed the House, which means that the president will probably sign it later today, is my guess, because he'll sign it during prime time, right?
Right.
So here's a couple of big things. First of all, you remember in the 2017 Act on real estate, they made a mistake with respect to tenant improvements, restaurants, what they called qualified improvement property. And it turned out that ended up being 39-year property or 27-year property instead of 15-year property. And remember, of course, the reason that's so important is because if it's 15-year property, you get bonus depreciation.
Right.
So you're talking about the difference between 2 to 3% depreciation a year and 100% in the year you do it.
Yeah.
Okay, they fixed that, and they fixed it retroactively. So if you capitalized your qualified improvements, which means your tenant improvements, and if you're a restaurant, et cetera, if you were under that and you capitalize those for 2018, you can file an amended return and get that money back. Okay, so you should be able to go back and get that bonus depreciation. I'm sure they're going to provide for that mechanism. Okay, so that's one big one. Another one is, and one I saw they talked about, it's not as big as what the media thinks it is. Remember, we had this loss provision where you can only use up to $500,000 of losses from business against really non-business income. Now, non-business income is very restricted, right? Non-business income includes retirement income and portfolio income, dividends, interest, et cetera. So, they're talking in the news yesterday. This is a big giveaway to real estate developers. And I'm going, I don't know any real estate developers who get dividends.
Right. Right.
That's not where they make their money. Their income is all business income, and they don't have that limitation anyway. I don't have any clients limited by that $500,000 exception. However, if that is an issue for you, I mean, it's a nice benefit.
Sure.
Right? I mean, you get to use that loss. Another one is net operating loss carrybacks. So in 2017, they moved it to carry forward only. Now you've got a 5-year carryback. So if you had a loss last year, okay, now, of course, this year you have to wait till the end of the year. So this is not a provision that helps very many people immediately.
Right.
But you're allowed to carry back 5 years now. So losses for, for a couple of years here in this period are going to be able to be carried back for 5 years, and so you can get a refund. So if you did have a net operating loss last year, instead of carrying it for 2020 to 2020, you can actually carry it back and get your taxes back from prior years. So that's actually something that people ought to be talking to their CPAs about. Another one is, and this is, I think, a big one for probably, it's really a middle income provision. And that is that if you're hit by this virus crisis, what I call the virus crisis, if you're really hit by this, either your sales have gone down or you have people that have, gotten the virus, or you've gotten the virus, or whatever, you actually can take out up to $100,000 from your IRA without paying any tax this year, no penalties, and you can spread it over 3 years. So that $100,000, that's something that people ought to be looking at if they qualify for it. But again, you're going to want to sit down with your CPA to see if you qualify for it. The other thing they did in the same vein was with 401ks. Historically, you've been able to borrow $50,000 from the 401k. Now you can borrow $100,000, and if it was due at the end of this year, let's say you already have one out and it was due at the end of this year, you don't have to pay it for another year. So there's some deferral provisions in there that are good too.
So the retirement income, was it for the IRA too? Was that also just a loan, or was that being able
No, that what that means is you can take that $100,000 out
early, right,
from your IRA. You can take it out early, not pay the 10% penalty, and then you can spread it over 3 years. So you spread it over 2020, 2021, and 2022. So instead of picking it all up in 1 year where it would push your tax rate up, you get to spread it out and you don't have to pay tax on it. Now, let me tell you my favorite tax provision in this. And there's one more I want to talk about for the real estate people, because I know you got a lot of real estate people. Yeah. And that's the interest question. Okay, so we'll talk about that in a minute. But the other one is, not only do we all know that we got an extension to pay and to file to July 15th, right? That was announced a week ago. Now what we have is a deferral of our estimated payments. So if you're an entrepreneur, you make an estimated payment in April, you make one in June, and you make another one in September. Those 3 payments are not due now until October 15th. Right. Okay. Now,
well, that's great, because then that's usually when we pay anyway.
Right. But here's the window of opportunity. You could just defer. But if you were to, and you and I have been working on this, and I've been working on this with some of our new clients that you've referred over to us. If you create a tax strategy between now and October 15th, you may not have to pay that at all, because you may be able to reduce your taxes so much by creating this plan of action that instead of paying a huge payment on October 15th, you may be able to pay, half as much on October 15th, or a lot less on October 15th. So I think that's a huge window of opportunity that we have, that instead of having to worry about, okay, do I make my April payment? Because that's in 2 weeks, right? Do I make my April 15th payment? And then, okay, but now I don't have money to hire a CPA to help me with my taxes, to help me with my strategy. Okay, no, now I have that money. So the money that I would have spent, on my estimated payment, I have available to me in order to prevent future taxes. To me, that's a window of opportunity very few people are talking about.
Yeah, sure.
But when you consider that, so let me ask you a question, Buck. Do you think we're going to see some bargains in the market later this year?
Yeah, I do. I think particularly probably I would say Q4, you're going to really see the fallout of what we're seeing right now, because that's when the guardrails come off.
So so think about this from a timing standpoint, because I agree with you. Yeah. I think Q4, maybe even Q3, we're going to see some pretty big bargains in multifamily and commercial and other real estate. Okay. Yeah. So I know people who are prepared for this. I was talking to my friend who's a commercial attorney. He says his clients, because he works with, a lot of real estate developers, et cetera. He goes, his clients are prepared for this. They've been waiting for this. Yeah. I mean, they literally have been waiting for this opportunity. And he goes, they're going to make more money this year than they've made in 10 years. And if you think that there's that opportunity for you towards the end of the year, well, okay, now that can create some tax opportunities as long as you plan now. If you wait here's the challenge. People say, well, okay, well, when I do that, then I'll just get the tax benefit. No, it doesn't work that way. You know very well with the passive loss rules that if you don't plan ahead of time, you don't get those losses.
Yep.
So we have to do the planning now so that you can get those losses in October, November, December. And so that's, to me, the big window of opportunity that I find that people aren't quite connecting the dots on that. And, we're doing everything we can to help people connect the dots. And I know you are too. So yeah. I appreciate what you're doing, Buck.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you guys actually right now, you're running, to encourage that. And I think, well, listen, one of the things I've been telling people is that right now, while this is all kind of shaking out, it's a good time to go back to basics, to make sure that your, asset protection, your estate planning, insurance, all that stuff is in place, but also a good time to get your tax planning strategies done once and for all. If you've been thinking about doing things with, like with Tom, with Wealthability, now would be a perfect time. And you guys actually have, you have some promotional things going on to that effect. Is that right?
We do, actually. So, okay, you're the first. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and announce this. For the month of April, what we're going to do is that anybody signs up for, to do that tax strategy with us during the month of April, we're going to do their personal return and one of their business returns for free the first year.
Whoa. So hey, wait a second. This doesn't have one of those going back 10 years things, does it, Tom?
It's from date of enactment, just like the bill, Buck. It's from date of enactment. Okay, we're gonna do this 1 month. We're only gonna do it 1 month because it's a big deal.
Yeah.
You're talking about a personal return that, with people that Buck, those are not simple personal returns. And you're talking about one of the business returns. So, not all the business returns that would put us under. But the personal return, one of the business returns, we're going to do that. Anybody who signs up during the month of April.
Wow.
So we're actually pretty excited about that. We think it's, it's part of what we're giving back, frankly.
Yep.
True. We think it's a good business decision, but from a how can we help the community right now? To me, that's a way we can help is, look, we want to reduce your taxes. We also know that you're concerned about your cash flow. And so we're trying to help with that cash flow by giving this this special offer that we have never even considered before because we're in this crisis, frankly.
So, Tom, just for clarity, there's a lot of people I know and, certainly listeners of our show and stuff who have, probably connected with you guys at Wealthability, have said, yeah, this is something I want to do. I just don't know what the timing is. Would those people who've already connected with you, who've not signed, would those people qualify for that promotion?
Absolutely. Anybody who signs in April is going to get that promotion. So yeah, now would be the time if you've been waiting and you're going, when do I do this, et cetera. Here's the other thing. Remember, and this is something that I've seen. I don't know if you've seen this, but people seem to have a little more time. Yeah. They're not commuting.
Right.
One of our members was telling me yesterday that he did a forum group on Zoom, like we're doing. He did a forum with all of his dental clients. Well, they're not working at all right now. They're out of business because of the virus. And so they're working on their planning. They're working on their plan for what do we do when we come back? Because we know we're going to come back, right? And so, we look at this and we go, all right, we think there's a window here.
Yeah.
We think there's something special we can do here, and we just want to do what we can do to contribute to that.
That's awesome. So if people are interested in that, they go to, and if they have not been in touch with somebody, they go to wealthability.com. So that's wealthability.com, and we'll also put a...
And we'll do a free consultation. So the initial consultation, and the reality is we'll look at your tax return. We actually have some pretty sophisticated tools. It's not just our people who are looking at it, but we actually have tools to look at your tax return. And they're brand new tools, Buck, by the way. We have not shared those with you before yet. We're working out some of the bugs in them, but those tools basically will tell us, can we help you or can't we help you? And they'll really give us a very quick analysis of your tax return from last year. Okay, now granted, this year may be a little different, so we'll kind of look at that too. But they'll look at your tax return from last year and say, okay, if you had been with us last year and we'd had a strategy in place, how much money could you have saved? And so we don't want to take a client that we can't help. I mean, the reality is as you know, Buck, I love words of affirmation, right? I like people telling me they like me. I'm very open and honest about that one. Right. And I don't want clients who don't like me. I mean, you don't want an unhappy customer. You don't want an happy client. So we'll only take you on if we are really clear that we can actually do something for you. And we think our experiences that, within 3 months, we can seriously reduce people's taxes. I know you saw it when we started working with you.
For sure.
And we're pretty confident in that brand promise.
So that's a huge opportunity, folks. Certainly, if you are already in queue and ready to pull the trigger, it's probably a good idea to do that. Otherwise, be in touch with Wealthability. And one thing I'll just mention is whoever you speak to there, do mention that you're a listener of the show, because we do have a certain kind of, we do have philosophies and we have certain ways we talk and think. And sometimes it's nice to pair up with somebody you can talk to over there who is familiar with our show as well. You've been, you're a young lad, I know.
Oh no, I am now elderly, pal. I've learned just last week that I'm elderly.
Right. I didn't want to say that, but you're an experienced guy. You've seen a lot of stuff happen. I mean, I don't think anybody's seen anything like this happen unless you lived through
not unless you lived during the Depression.
Right.
Yep.
Right. The people that you've seen go through 2008, through some of the other major setbacks in the economy, you've seen them. What do they do differently in this type of setting? What are the attitudes that they have that are different than everybody else?
Good question. Number one is they don't panic. That's number one. They don't panic. It's okay to have a meltdown one night. And, we've probably all been through that in the last couple of weeks, going, oh my heavens, the whole world is falling apart. And, you're going to have those moments. Don't worry about that. But you don't panic. You don't panic sell. Okay. And you don't panic buy. Right. I love it. I loved it when Costco the other day came out and said, we're not going to accept returns of toilet paper, because people were hoarding it. They were buying 200 rolls of toilet paper and cleaning the shelves off so that, or baby wipes. And we have grandchildren that they need baby wipes. Right. Right. So, if don't panic sell, but also don't panic buy. Right. And so that's number one. Okay. Second of all, now's the time of all time to sit back and say, okay, the world has changed. To think that this is we're going to be done with this in a couple of weeks is, you also believe in the Easter Bunny, right?
Right.
So that's just not going to happen. This is going to cause some permanent changes to the way people do business. In one, you're going to see a lot more video like this, right? And a lot fewer people actually go to conferences because people are going to get used to it.
Yep.
Okay. They're going to be comfortable. We actually do all of our team meetings now, of course, on, like this, right? Video conferencing. And we're liking it. We're really enjoying it. We can connect more often. We can connect for shorter periods of time. We don't have to travel. So when you think about your business or you think about your investing, one of the things that the smart people are doing right now is they are planning for their life 3, 6, 9 months from now. Okay. So I would say that's number 2 is they are planning now. They're not saying, I'm just going to sit tight and watch Netflix. Okay. Right. I'm going to actually take this opportunity because I do have more time because I'm not driving. Okay. I'm not going to the grocery store. I'm not doing these things. And they're taking the time to get education. So to plan. The third thing is the education. So what we found with 2008 and 9 is we did have some really smart real estate people go out of business. They came back, of course, with a vengeance in 2011 and 12, right? They're not in the same place they were in 2008 because they learned, okay, wait a minute, like you were talking about, we need to be well capitalized. Right. The companies who are well capitalized are fine because they go, this is not going to last forever. They are working diligently on vaccine. They're working diligently on a cure. Okay, yep. So both of those are actually legitimately possible. I talked to actually one of your people yesterday, who's a client of ours, and they said, you know what, a cure is, or a maybe not complete cure, but something that would keep the people from dying from it, is really possible within the next 2 months.
Yeah.
Okay. A vaccine, he's thinking, is possible even as soon as the fall. Okay. So you're not talking about a really long period of time. You're not talking about years and years of this, right? You're talking about 6 months, a year, maybe 18 months, I think, at the outset. And so what are you going to do? And the biggest thing you can do right now, of course, is really what you and I basically spend our lives doing, which is getting educated.
Yep.
And providing education. If you have something, I did a podcast this morning with Tom Rath, who y'all know from his books are like the best-selling books of all time on Amazon. Strength Finder 2.0, that's his book. Okay, so y'all know that book. And he said, you know what, you do have to look at your strengths and look at what can you contribute. He actually came up with this great word. I'm looking at it right now. Contribify, uh-huh. So, and I love that. He's talking about what can we do right now to serve other people. And the biggest thing we can do, I think, is educate people with what is useful for them that we know right now. And the flip side of that is, okay, then we need to get educated.
Right.
So I'm looking at it. I'm going, okay, I'm reading the bill, right? I'm reading the new bill. I'm reading things and I'm doing that, but I'm also reaching out to colleagues and friends and saying, who do you know? What do you know about this? I mean, I'm talking to a guy on Monday that is an SBA loan broker. So, I'm going to send my clients to him and say, look, you're an expert in this. I'm not. I can help them put the package together, but as far as actually getting it done, I need help with that. So the other thing I would say that the really successful people do, and I'll end with this, is they get help.
Right.
They're do it yourself. 3 most expensive words in the English language. They get help, and they build their team. They get help. They find mentors. They find people who can do things that they can't do and teach them things that they don't know.
Yeah, it's like the old saying that never let a crisis go to waste, right? And that's kind of what we've got right now. We've got a situation where, in many respects, it's a dry run for something that could be a lot worse. I mean, I'm not saying this is not bad. That's for sure. But as you mentioned, this has got sort of a defined beginning and end to it, whether that's, a few months to a year or whatever the case may be. You may find that you've got, things that you can stress test right now, and you can look at what happens if, the Dow falls off the cliff like it did. Are you prepared for that? What are you hedged in? What's your other plan? And so not only the opportunities, the business opportunities, et cetera, but also the defensive stuff. And so, again, great time to sit back and think about that. And part of that is your tax planning, which, again, I will tell you, as everyone listening to the show knows, it's to me, you can't be a good investor without having a good tax plan. It just doesn't make any sense, right? It's like only looking at your top line and not looking at your bottom line. So, Tom, once again, wealthability.com. The offer is spectacular. One free return along with doing your planning. Great opportunity, and I want to thank you again, as always, for being on Wealth Formula Podcast today.
Always happy to be here, Buck. Thank you so much. And I want to thank all your listeners, because I know a lot of them are medical professionals, and you guys are frontline. Thank you for that.
We'll be right back. Welcome back to the show, everyone. Hope you enjoyed it, and certainly give, if you are thinking about this sort of wealthability, tax planning thing, this is an incredible offer. These tax returns are not cheap, and to get get one for free as part of your planning is actually a real coup. So definitely check it out. I've gotten emails from some of you even in the last, couple of weeks, just, your CPAs are confused and they just have no clue what's going on because you're investing in real estate. You're doing things outside of the usual stuff, and, they're so confused, and they're not going to help you with what you need. So definitely check it out. Go to wealthability.com. And that's basically all I have for you this week. I do want to just, hopefully that you hope you and your family the best, and that you can stay safe. And that's it for me this week on Wealth Formula Podcast. This is Buck Joffrey signing off.
Thank you for listening to the Wealth Formula Podcast. Visit us on the web at wealthformula.com. The information contained in this podcast are opinions, not fact. As always, consult your own financial team before making any investment. See you next time.